nerds. We're back with another edition of Two Nerdy Dads. With me, as always, is Jason Applegate. Say hey, Jason.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
We are getting ever closer to Christmas and the holiday season. But before that, Jason, what's the news this week?
Well, we have just recently found out some really interesting information about a certain role that Mark Hamill is reprising. No, it is not Luke Skywalker. Sorry to get everybody excited there, but I think it's equally exciting, from my point of view anyway, the Trickster. He will be in the new Flash series, reprising his role from when he played the Trickster in the 90s. Jimmy, you remember that, don't you, when he was the Trickster?
I certainly do, and here's the embarrassing part. I knew it was cheesy, his costume.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize how cheesy until it's all over the internet now. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it's bad. You've got to rent that sometime if you're a child of the 90s like Jimmy and I are, meaning that we spent some of our high school years in the 90s, you've got to rent The Flash from Netflix, because I did. I think it's only like 6 discs, because it only ran the 1 season. I think maybe it ran 2, but it's all in one collection, and it is just awful, but in a good nostalgic way, because I'll tell you, I just showed my kids, and I'm just gonna like get this parenting fail like right out of the way, because it was thematic. I showed them The Great American Hero. Do you remember that show?
Yeah, I do. Of course I do.
That was awful. Like, I couldn't even sit through one episode. I was like, I'm sorry, kids, this is really bad. Now, my daughter would laugh every time he would crash land, because he had problems landing. He had problems flying, too. But
well, that's what happens when you lose the instruction manual to your brand new superhero outfit.
That is true. That is
Put
true.
it online.
That is true. But it was so awful that I was like, okay, we're done with this episode. It's time for bed. So parenting fail out of the way, because it was relevant. But the 90s Flash in comparison is far better, but still pretty bad. It definitely, you see the influence of the Tim Burton Batman, because it had come out shortly after that, and it's definitely very 90s. You have shoulder pads in suits for both men and women. So there you have it.
And it's so embarrassing, Jason, because we really were, young adults in the 90s, and I remember fond memories, and like, yeah, it was a great time. And then when I see pictures and stuff, I'm like, what? What is that? That's got to be the 80s. That is no way. Oh, no.
That's awesome. Yeah, but I'm excited because apparently, and they really spelled it out, what's going to be going on, is he's going to be playing the same role. He is the original Trickster, who was basically an anarchist terrorist of some kind. But he's imprisoned at Ironside, where, as we know, Flash's father, who was the original Flash in the 90s series, is imprisoned. And they're basically going to him for advice on a new copycat Trickster. And so the Mark Hamill character, whose name is James Jesse from the original, advises them on how to stop this new Trickster, which I thought, that's pretty clever, because I wondered if he was going to don the Trickster costume again and be out there. And I'm all for Mark Hamill's voice work, which, if you watch the original Trickster, you really see the predecessor to his Joker animated series voice. And but I just wasn't sure how he was going to pull that off in the new Flash series.
Yeah, that was my concern too. Are we a geriatric Trickster? That's
harsh.
Annoying. But nothing against Luke Skywalker, but let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all afraid a little bit too about him as Luke Skywalker, because we've seen James Kirk reappear in the Next Generation movie, and that was just bad. Even the later movies that weren't Next Generation were. It was getting up there, and you were just kind of having a tough time buying Captain Kirk as a dynamic hero. But I'm excited for this. I think it's going to be great. I wish I have seen more of The Flash. I have only seen the pilot. I have not seen any of the other episodes. I don't get it on demand with the cable provider that I have, and I can't watch anything unless it's on demand because I hardly ever have the time to watch it when it actually airs, unfortunately. So I've been bummed that I haven't been able to catch up with it at all. Have you had a chance to watch many of that series?
No, unfortunately, similar problem. We just lost track of it with the pilot. We've caught up a little bit on the Arrow, but I'll be honest, I'm more invested in the Arrow, so that's why I've been keeping up with it. But I have every intention to go back because I thoroughly enjoyed the pilot.
It's gotten nothing but great feedback from what I've seen anyway. A lot of people are liking it. It's pretty widely popular, which is nice to see. I think that's encouraging because I did like the pilot, and I do like Arrow, and it's nice that they crossed over in the last episode. I guess it was the first of a two-part crossover. Or did both of them air because it was like one day and then the next day probably? Because Flash was Tuesday, Arrow Wednesday.
Don't know, but I saw a website call it Flaro, and I thought that was hilarious.
That is hilarious. That's awesome. Yeah, so again, wish I would have seen that. We could have talked a little bit about that. But hey, I'm excited about Mark Hamill in anything because I think he's really an underrated performer. If you see his voice work, I think you know what we're talking about. But it's unfortunate he couldn't get a whole lot more live action stuff going on. But really, only Han Solo was able to escape that Star Wars curse in a way.
Yeah, I think he definitely got typecast big time because there were like Corvette Summer came out. I think it was called The Big Red, which was a war film, which he actually was pretty good at. Minor role, but pretty good.
That's right. He was in that. I am so glad you brought that up. That is an excellent, excellent World War II film, and I forgot he was in that.
Yeah, he's young. He's young. He's still Luke Skywalker age, but it's interesting to see him in a World War movie, and you're like, wow. And then, of course, the classic The Guyver, which that was bad 90s.
Yeah, it was tough going for him afterwards, so not everybody had Indiana Jones to follow Star Wars like Ford.
Well, that's sort of ironic, because Harrison Ford was not supposed to be Han Solo. He happened to be there. His agent got him in the vicinity of the casting as a carpenter that day, and because George Lucas knew him from American Graffiti, he needed somebody to sit in to interact with some of the other actors coming in, so he said, hey, Harrison, let's do that. So he got that role, and then he got Indiana Jones because Tom Selleck got stuck in his contract with Magnum P.I.
Yep.
Harrison Ford then became Indiana Jones, and I can't imagine anybody else doing that, but yeah, Harrison Ford definitely took advantage of his opportunities.
Yeah, as a director of plays and stuff, I've actually had the Harrison Ford effect, where I've had students, because you're always short on guys when it comes to like community theaters or high school productions, and I've had guys and I've just been like, hey, go up there and read this part, and then I end up roping them into it. So I can relate to that. I always think of Ford whenever that happens. But
that's fun.
So that's our first big news. Second on our list is the spoiler that we want to make sure we warn people. This is for a Batman versus Superman, so it's a spoiler. So if you're watching us live, probably want to maybe mute it for a while, and we'll give you the thumbs up that like, okay, it's all right to listen. And if you're watching us on YouTube, maybe you can kind of skim through, or you can mute us till you see the thumbs up. So starting right now, mute. Okay, I think we've given people enough time to do that. When you were telling me it was a spoiler and I went and looked at it, I was contemplating, like, I don't know, should I look, should I not look, And I looked and I'm like, yeah, okay. I didn't think it was, like, huge, but still pretty interesting. You wanna give everybody what the spoiler is, because you're the one who found it.
Sure, and it really was a situation where it's a spoiler. But it wasn't like a huge spoiler, like, oh my God, Batman dies at the end. It's gonna ruin the whole movie. Because when I read it, the headline was major Batman character dies. I'm like, oh man, I wonder who it is. And of course, I'm the sucker who looks. And I was just immediately thought Robin. It's got to be Robin. Robin's dead, and he's sort of the aftermath of what happened after Robin's death. That's what Batman vs Superman. That's the character we're going to see. No, it's Commissioner Gordon, James Gordon. Has passed away. He's no longer in this world. And the only reason we know that is there's a plaque that, in memoriam or whatever it says. So Jim Gordon is not in this, and sort of, I guess, more of the spoiler part of it is it sets this world up that Batman, what was it, 17 years he's been fighting crime in Gotham? So
Right.
he's been doing this. He's been, a myth, or not a myth, a legend in Gotham now. But they said most of this movie will take place in Metropolis, but there will be some fight scenes to establish Batman in Gotham.
Right. And yeah, like I was like you. I was like, yeah, okay, and I guess Gordon is a big character. I mean, if you look at you look at the last trilogy, the Nolan trilogy, and really he is probably the second biggest character in the series because he's in all three movies and he's kind of the sidekick in a way because there's no Robin in it until sort of the last movie, but yeah, I was a little bit sort of like, oh, okay, and I guess there was rumored in earlier scripts that that Robin was gonna be dead, and there was gonna be some reference, and there may still yet be that, because certainly over 17 years, either it's Christopher Nolan and there is no Robin, or maybe Robin has come and gone, or what have you. What I thought was interesting was, and the article that you sent me mentioned this. Was that it was interesting that they've an interesting establishment in the movieverse because if they are continuing on, what are they going to do with if they do any more Batman solo films? Are they going to go backwards and tell us about those 17 years and maybe even cast someone different in the bat suit than Affleck, or are they going to just continue to move forward? Obviously, maybe they won't make any Batman films at all. I mean, heaven knows we've had several of them, more than any other character, really. Maybe they just kind of go forward, and Batman's a central figure in the Justice League movies. It'll be interesting to see what they decide to do.
I almost get the sense Warner Brothers, in their infinite wisdom with their characters, which is very low with wisdom.
I was going to say that was sarcastic, right?
They're trying to skip ahead right to the Dark Knight Returns. Like, okay, he's 17 years in. Affleck can do it. Yeah, let's get him to the old part so we can do the Dark Knight Returns. Perfect.
Right, which is where you see a huge, the most iconic battle between Batman and Superman is in that, and all of us, wonder if that's going to be recreated. When they announced the idea for the movie at Comic-Con a couple years ago, they read dialogue from the Dark Knight, the Dark Knight Returns, the dialogue between Batman and Superman. So it got everybody, all clamoring, about that. So I wonder how much they're going to cater to that storyline or not. I think it'll be interesting.
I agree. And a little side note, please, I want to know the truth. I read a rumor on this, and I haven't really seen it much, so I'm like, if it was true, I think this would be blowing up, that we are having Frank Miller return to write Dark Knight Returns 3 with Scott Snyder.
Yeah, I saw that rumor too. I saw that on Twitter a little bit. Frank Miller, for me, I just don't know about that guy. Like, I love Dark Knight Returns. I love Batman Year One. And what he did for Batman is awesome. And I know I've said this before, probably on this podcast. But he's become such a dirty old man that I'm not a fan of his. I could not stand DK2, and most people despised it, thought it was sloppy in writing and in the art. That the only thing that's encouraging about a DK3 would be that Snyder's doing it.
Well, that's why I'm hoping it's almost like a George Lucas with Star Wars, where he's like, okay, Frank Miller turns in his outline, and then Scott Snyder spruces up so that none of Miller's craziness can get in the way. Because if I remember correctly, it's been a while, but DK2 was supposed to be like 6, maybe even 12 issues or something. It ended up being 3 because he was just so difficult, and DC was like, oh man, we can't do this. And things were delayed. It took forever. It was really a pain in the butt. And if I remember correctly, then I can understand DC's hesitance and be like, all right, let's get Scott Snyder involved because that dude's amazing. So Frank, give us what you got, Scott. Write it out.
Right. Well, and really, he's, Snyder, since maybe Morrison, you could throw him in there too, but really since Miller, Snyder's been the guy for Batman. I mean, he's the hot commodity. He got to retell the story with Zero Year, much like Year One, was a retelling of the story. So, kind of cool. If his name isn't attached, then I don't know. I do have to say this though. I hope that the art is in the Frank Miller style, because I do like Frank Miller's art in The Dark Knight Returns, and then it just got really sloppy in DK2. It's obviously bad. So yeah, I think that's kind of interesting and encouraging as well. But Jim Gordon being dead in the new one is sort of underwhelming a little bit, I think. But we'll see what that means, and I'm excited for the movie. I don't know. I know there's a lot of positive and negative out there about it, but I think it's another thing that I got from the article was that there will be fights in both Gotham and in Metropolis, so it's set in both cities, which is pretty cool. And then the other thing that I got was that they had leaked that Alfred yet again gives very long advice through very long stories, this time about two samurais that fight each other or something like that, and I'm like, okay, all right, let's see how that rolls. But interesting that people must have a copy of the script, or things are getting leaked out a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. All right, couple of bits of news that we didn't really get to last week because we were so kind of caught up with the Star Wars trailer and the Suicide Squad news, and that was that Benedict Cumberbatch is finally and officially confirmed to play Doctor Strange. Thoughts on that?
I went back and watched Star Trek Into Darkness because that's really the only film I know Benedict Cumberbatch from. And I know he's Sherlock Holmes on BBC is a big thing, but this is the only one I really know. And watching it, I can see in his character Khan the arrogance of Stephen Strange and the intelligence. I also can see once he loses the ability to be a surgeon, how he could be just angry, just supremely angry. That was before he basically becomes part of the dark arts and all that. So I definitely think he can pull it off rather easily. I'm very impressed, honestly, because I didn't think Benedict would be one of those actors who would give that kind of time commitment that Doctor Strange and, more importantly, Marvel will require. So I was really impressed with that. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I forgot that we needed to give the thumbs up so people could unmute their thing. Bear with us. This whole video thing is new to us. So here it is. The thumbs are up. You can listen again. The only thing you missed was that we're talking about Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. So you're good to go. Anyway, I'm the same. I'm with you. I think, and I said this before when it was rumored, I think he's perfect for the part. I think they were super smart to cast him because, the Anglophiles love Cumberbatch. Anyone who loves the British stuff, they love him, and they're gonna watch whatever he's in. So you're gonna rope in a whole bunch of people that are gonna go and see this movie just because Cumberbatch is in it, and you need that, I think, for Doctor Strange because he's not as widely known of a character. So you need that sort of already established pool of fans to draw from, and I think you're exactly right. He can play that character. I saw a funny tweet that said that they need to have Iron Man and Doctor Strange meet just so that Cumberbatch and Robert Downey Jr. can have a line where they say, "No, bleep Sherlock," because they both have played Sherlock Holmes, and it would be a nice little, tip of the cap. But
I was thinking about it. To me, the obvious choice to cast as Doctor Strange is Robert Downey Jr. You clearly can't do that because he's Iron Man. I mean, he is Tony Stark. Mm-hmm. But if he wasn't, it'd be like, yeah, he'd be a perfect Doctor Strange. So I like this as sort of a choice.
Yeah, the only difference is that he couldn't be as snarky as he is as Tony Stark. I mean, because Strange, as egotistical and so forth as he is before he becomes the Sorcerer Supreme, he's not anywhere nearly as, sarcastic and witty. Well, I mean, he can be witty, but he's not as sardonic. He's not as yeah, like I said, snarky. So I think, but he can be clever. He can still have that egotism to him, and I think Cumberbatch is gonna bring that nicely to the part. And his voice work is awesome. Like, I don't know if you've check it out sometime. There's like a YouTube video out there. I don't remember who he did it for, but he did a bunch of impersonations, and he was spot on for like quite a lot of them. And so, the man can do, if you're thinking, oh, I'm gonna watch this and all I'll be thinking about is Sherlock, like it's just gonna bother me. Like, no, just give him a shot, because he can do something different with his voice that you haven't really seen him do. Although you kind of see it in Star Trek a little bit.
Very cool. And then the other bit of news, which was exciting, which again we kind of knew and had been talked about, was Ryan Reynolds was confirmed for Deadpool. So February 2016, Deadpool will be released with Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, and hopefully with a mouth.
Yes, please. But I had heard in the original script, and this was like years ago when it was just rumored, that they were actually going to make fun of the Deadpool from Wolverine Origins in the Deadpool movie. Like, yeah, because it's we know that the Deadpool is referencing very much, so it would fit that. Anything about, was that trailer that was leaked, was that like an authentic like teaser trailer? Was that fan created like some of the Star Wars stuff, or what was that?
No, it was test footage that was shown at San Diego Comic-Con. It was for real. It was basically to get Fox on board to show the excitement, and my feeling was that it was leaked so that they could try and get audience acceptance and support to approach Fox and be like, look at all the support it got. Look at all the comments. Let's go. Let's do this. And
right.
It worked.
Yeah, I think it did, and because I watched that and loved it. Some of the comments that I've seen about it, and it's been from some of our own people at Nerd Locker, is it might have been you even, that you hope it's R. Because of Deadpool's content. Like, it just needs to be. I am all for, especially as being a dad, having comic book stuff be kid friendly, be open to wider audiences and so forth. For example, the Teen Titans, the new Teen Titans cartoon that's on Cartoon Network. A lot of people don't like that are like, in their 20s and teens and stuff. They're like, why can't we have the Teen Titans like it used to be and blah blah blah. And I'm like, why can't there be something for kids? Why can't there be a Teen Titans that's very kid friendly and isn't, for teenagers and 20-somethings. But Deadpool is the exception. Like, I think it needs to be for adults. It needs to be, an R-rated because of the level of violence. I mean, some of my favorite Deadpool, and I haven't read a lot of his individual series, but some of my favorite Deadpool was when he was on X-Force. And there's one scene that I love where he like loses his arm and he's literally walking into the room and he's got his arm in his sleeve. He's like got it in his mouth and he's like, it's in the dialogue above his head, because he's talking while he's holding his arm in his mouth. And it's just funny. It's just like some of the comedy is the way in which he can just take a licking and keep on ticking.
Yeah, I'm a big Deadpool fan. Mm-hmm. I love, again, the 90s. I'm sorry. I love the 90s version. I think Mark Waid did a fantastic job with the first run of his individual series. There's a great couple one-shots out there, too. But when he was going up against Cable and X-Force, and then much, much later, when he joined Uncanny X-Force, I love those storylines. I thought that was a great team. He's just, he's literally insane, and he has every right to be insane with what happened with all the experiments
Hmm.
And I just love his character. He is, yes, he's overused. He's on way too many teams. He does way too much stuff. But when he gets the writer that knows how to write Deadpool, it's really good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And you never have to apologize by being for being a fan of the '90s. Like, let's just establish that right here. Now we can apologize for the '90s.
Yes.
That we can do, but not for being a fan of the stuff from it. But no, I'm with you 100%. I think what's interesting about his character is he was invented as a parody for the DC character. Is it Deathstroke?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wade Wilson.
Wade Wilson, right?
Wade Wilson.
Right. So it's obvious, how that it's this parody character, and they even have played with that parody like directly. So and since that's what he was created for, it only makes sense that it went the direction that it did. And some of the best stuff that again I haven't read, but it's on my bucket list is the Marvel, Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe or whatever it is, where he goes through and just kills everybody. And it's just fan favorite kind of stuff, and that's where I think his strength is pleasing the fanboys. And so, while we understand that in films you have to widen your audience a little bit, hopefully it does that still. Because I think it would be a shame, particularly with this character, not to.
Completely agree. And then there's one more bit of sort of catch-up news that I know of, and that was over the weekend. Robert Orci was separated from Paramount on the Star Trek III movie. He was the writer without Kurtzman on the first two, and J.J. Abrams directing. And Alex Kurtzman left to, I believe, go do Spider-Man 3, which is up in the air. And then Robert Orci was going to take over directing duties from J.J. Abrams, who obviously left to go do Star Wars. He is now out, and there's a lot of rumors flowing around, but the one I heard, which I hope it's true because it's so ridiculous, in his script he had the Enterprise dealing with black holes and time travel. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? And that's essentially the way he was able to get Chris Pine and William Shatner Kirks together on screen. I was like, oh my God, you should be immediately fired just for trying to come up with that idea, let alone writing a script, have it there, budgeted, and production starting. Ridiculous.
Have they filmed anything with Shatner yet?
No. From what I understand, the studio was just not happy with the way that was going. In the script, they started pre-production, and they finally kind of put their foot down and like, no, we're not doing that. We've got a good thing going. No, that's ridiculous. So.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know about replacement or anything like that, but that's what happened over the weekend.
That's interesting news, and I think it's good news in a way. I mean, I know a lot of people were annoyed by Nimoy being in it, and I think bringing more than that is even worse. I don't know. I mean, let's not make this Doctor Who, right? Let's not get all too crazy with the timey-wimey stuff, and let it be what it is. We've got our alternate timeline now. Let's run with that. Let these characters both pay tribute to the original, but still establish their own, development and such. And I think that's important and something for new fans to be able to grab onto and go with. And the more you bring in, plus I've just heard that William Shatner is a complete pain in the butt to work with, and just is a total egomaniac, and I can't imagine it would turn out well at all. That it just seems like a recipe for disaster. And maybe that's unfair because I don't know the guy. I mean, I saw him at a Comic-Con once, and he had a huge long line, so it's hard to tell. Is he looked like he was not happy to be there, that he was a jerk, but I mean, the man's got this huge long line he's dealing with. I mean, I probably look that way too because he's, dealing with all of these people. But I don't know, just things I've heard.
Yeah, I think that's pretty standard with people's opinion of him. I remember when the first rebooted Star Trek came out, and he was complaining, why isn't James T. Kirk coming back? Why aren't I coming back? Why is Leonard Nimoy? And it was like, when you see the movie, it fits perfectly. There's no reason for your character to be in there at all.
Right.
And now to sort of, come back and be like, oh, well, we'll make up a script that includes you. It's like, no. J.J. Abrams really recreated Star Trek. These are the two best movies in the franchise, in my opinion. The original Wrath of Khan is the only one that kind of stands up with these two. Don't destroy it. Don't go backwards. Let's keep moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with you about Wrath of Khan. Although 4 was pretty good. What was 4 even called? That was the one where they went back in time.
What is wrong with you?
I know, but it's just so stupid. It's awesome. I don't know. I still laugh when he picks up the mouse and he's like, "Hello, computer, computer." I'll do that even every now and then, as you just saw. Let's move on.
Thank you.
This is live. Let's edit this out in the the redo. No. Any other? I think that's all in the way of news, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we caught up with the big events.
Okay, cool. So since it's December, we want to get into the holiday spirit, and kind of talk about some things holiday wise. And I've put out on Facebook and on Twitter and stuff, like, let us know if you're watching us now or you're watching this later after we've recorded it. Hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up if you can find us on Facebook, that kind of thing. And let us know some of your Christmas traditions, memories, any stories that you might have, recommendations that you might have, because we're going to try to, and I say Christmas, and of course I mean holidays. If you celebrate Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or whatever it is, we're all about whatever. So share those with us, though, so we can share with you guys what other people are doing. And we got a couple responses on short notice that I wouldn't mind sharing. And then I want us to share some of our stuff. So Christmas traditions or memories. And then I know we also want to talk about, and I'd like to do this each week, recommending a favorite authentic Christmas movie, so one that is definitely Christmas themed, and a favorite not really Christmas movie just set during the time of Christmas. So think about some of those things, and then you guys out there in the interweb, let us know what's going on in the Twitterverse, whatever, what you might recommend too. So let's start with just overall traditions, memories, nerdy gifts received or given, what have you. Jimmy, why don't you start us off, because I just talked up a storm.
Sure. I would say tradition-wise, it was usually the weekend after Thanksgiving. So the week after Thanksgiving, that weekend, my dad and I would go out and hang up Christmas lights. And it wasn't quite to the extent of the Griswolds. I was definitely the Rusty character in that. And my dad was Clark, where I get handed a whole clump of lights. Yeah, you go through those. I was like, all right. So I'm trying to straighten out the line. I will never understand the physics of a string of lights and how it can get so knotted up and just insane. And you get them all, and this is the old school days where if one bulb was out, that whole strand was done. So you had to find the bulb, and then it was the old school bulbs where they were glass, so you could clearly cut your hands on that stuff if the bulb was broken. Yeah, it was, and I don't know how many times I accidentally, taking the bulb out, got a little zap of electricity. That was awesome too. But definitely hanging up the lights. The lights themselves weren't the awesome part, but hanging out with my dad, that was very cool. And again, we were in Cleveland, Ohio, so it was really cold. Usually, yeah, I would say maybe 20s, 30s. Yeah, so that was fun too, because you can't really do all that stuff with gloves, so you'd have to take your gloves off, do that, and put them back on. But how about you, as far as tradition goes?
Yeah, good. That's a good one. That's a really good one. I was gonna go with one of my favorite gifts, nerdy gifts that I've gotten. So like a memorable one of those. And I think what I'm gonna go with is it actually was the Mego Batmobile that my mom got me once, and she deals in antiques and stuff, so she'll run across some pretty cool finds, you know, with in the networks that she has, and so she came across this, and I was in college, so I have no money, right? And she found this from 1966, the movie version of the Batmobile, and inside it even had a Batman and Robin Mego doll. So those are definitely some prized items in my collection even to this day in the Batcave. So that's one of my memories as far as nerdy themed kinds of memories. One of my memories that my kids make me tell this story every Christmas, that's just a straight up gift, was do you shake your Christmas presents, Jimmy? You ever shake your Christmas presents to see what they are?
Not memorably. I think I got yelled at once upon a time about breaking something.
Yeah, right? So I never did either, right? Here I am. I think I'm, probably like 10, 11 years old, right? I'm not shaking any of my gifts. It's the last gift. The last gift, as everybody knows, is always the biggest, coolest gift. These parents always save it for last. So they're handing me this gift. It's a box about like this. I have no idea what it could possibly be. So I'm like, I'll shake it. So I go to shake it, and my parents go, no, don't do that. And I'm like, what? I open it up. I open the box. There's a hamster inside there. He comes out, and he's all like, woo. He was fine. He was not in any way physically damaged. He lived quite a long life. But it was an amusing story. Everyone got a big laugh out of it. My kids make me tell the story every Christmas about that. Because it cracks them up, of course. My kids are very much into slapstick humor, so they get a huge kick out of that.
That's my memory. I can say I've never had that experience.
Yeah, hopefully not many have. Yeah. So not one of my finest moments as a small child, but hey. A couple that some people did share was Shannon, who listens to us, says one of her traditions is watching the Doctor Who Christmas special. I have to admit that's recently become one of ours. So good one to share. And then my sister-in-law shared. My brother is a huge Star Wars fan, a lot like Jimmy is. I think they're comparable. And his name is James. How about that? Yeah. So she mentions that last year that she and the kids watched all 6 of the Star Wars movies for the very, very first time.
What? First time? Wow.
I know. Well, he's got younger kids, so that's a big part of it.
Okay.
Yeah, his youngest is, gosh, she seems like she's still 3 because they always stay younger than they are. But they're little. They're a lot younger than my kids are. Their oldest is between Sabrina and Cade for me. So so it was the first time that they all watched them together. And Tyrus, their oldest, is already planning on doing that again, and he has informed them, the eldest of the sons, that this is our new tradition, that we are going to watch all 6 of the Star Wars movies. And let me note that they do skip past episode 3, the volcano scene that gets pretty violent. Yeah, and we've talked about that in before. So they kind of like go get some Christmas cookies or something at that point, and then come back when it's all over and everybody's okay. So anyway, some cool stories to share. Share yours with us because we want to hear what they are, and maybe other people will pick up that Christmas tradition. You never know.
Most definitely. That's a good one.
Yeah. So let's go to some of our recommendations. So let's start with the holiday movie recommendations. We're going to do one that's authentically a holiday movie, and then another one that is one of our favorites. Not really, is it a Christmas movie, but it's set in that time or has some loose association with it. So why don't you go first on that bad boy?
All right, I'm going to go with, and this is not necessarily for the little ones. This might be a little more 10, 11, 12-year-olds, but Scrooged. Bill Murray's Scrooged, I think, is a fantastic movie. It's hilarious. It's just slightly off. Well, not slightly. It's definitely off. But it's obviously a retelling of what's his name? Charles Dickens,
Hmm.
Immortal
Christmas Carol.
Scrooge. Yeah, Christmas. So I just love it. I love the way they just change it up a little bit. Bill Murray's fantastic in it. So mine
Hmm.
is Scrooge. How about yours?
Yeah, I love Scrooge too, so I like to give a shout out to that. My family does not watch that though. My mother-in-law hates Bill Murray. She says that she feels like she wants to slap him in the face every time she sees him. And I was like, okay, all right, I see that. That's fine. But I loved that movie. I thought it was a nice modern interpretation of it. Isn't who's in that too? He was in the cop shows. He does that weird voice.
Bobcat
Yeah,
Goldthwait from Police
that's it.
Academy. It's got
Yeah.
Karen Allen, I think, from Indiana Jones.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's got quite a cast. It
It
really does.
does. It does, and it sticks to the the spirit of the story. So definitely an authentic Christmas movie. Mine is going to be a classic, and it's one that we always watch, and we watch it every year, and that is Charlie Brown Christmas. Love the Charlie Brown Christmas. It's just one of my favorites. I like all the Charlie Brown holiday movies, but the Christmas one is one that we will watch multiple times. Don't like the new one. Like they did a new one. Like when they show it on TV too, they'll show the classic one and then they'll show the newer one, and it just is not even close to the same. There's something about the voice actors that they had in the original one where you can just tell that they're kids, and sometimes I think that the kid actors don't even understand the words that they're actually reading, and saying in the lines, but it still works so wonderfully. um, and there's just something about the story about that sad little tree, that Charlie Brown picks out. It's just a good story, just a good story.
That's a good one. Very good one.
All right, how about favorite not really Christmas movie? Now I sprung this on you, so if you don't know, and you can pass. No
There's only
shame.
one that comes to mind. I'm sure there's a ton, but Die Hard.
Yeah.
I mean, Die Hard. Just the Run DMC song as he's pulling up with the limo, the Natalie building. It's really the first appearance of Alan Rickman in a movie, and he plays one of the greatest villains of all time. And yes, it is an 80s cheesy action flick, but it is the 80s cheesy action flick, and it really turned Bruce Willis into an action movie star. Before that, he was moonlighting, and that was pretty much it. People didn't think he was going to be able to cross over. So I know that's a little more history than anybody wanted, but it's a great flick, and it all happens on Christmas during a Christmas party.
It does. It does. Yeah, I think Die Hard, you could even say, changed action movies, in a way. Some of the things that they did in that film, you still see being done now. One of my favorite scenes in that whole thing is ho ho ho, now I have a machine gun, or maybe it's flipped that around, but but that's just classic. Who would have thought to do it that way? But yeah, I'm not surprised that you chose that one. I am going to go a little bit of a homer poll here. As you may or may not know, I'm a huge Batman fan, and so I'm going to go with Batman Returns, which is actually set during Christmas. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the Penguin in Batman Returns, but Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman is still, I think, the best Catwoman, and that's nothing against Anne Hathaway. She is absolutely gorgeous and did a good job in her interpretation of the role. But for me, no one captured the real femme fatale aspect of Catwoman like Michelle Pfeiffer does in that film, and she really carries the whole film because the whole Penguin side of things is just ridiculous. But her story's pretty cool.
Good
So,
call. Good call. I'd forgotten that was Christmas because that's when they're lighting the Christmas tree.
yeah, you have that the snow princess or whatever she is, and a little side behind the scenes note. They had to apparently sew that costume onto her for that scene. Like that's how tight the costume is on that Snow Queen. So, for our younger audience, maybe that gives you a little more incentive to watch it, although I think Catwoman is enough of an incentive if you ask me. But anyhow, we'll have to do some research because I think you're right. It's hard to think of movies that are not really Christmas movies, but just are kind of set around that time. So we'll definitely give that a shot. How about we go into our regular old just recommendations. We always do one that's a family recommendation and one that is an adult recommendation. And then we can finish up with maybe any parenting wins. You can do a Christmas-themed parenting win or fail, and if we don't have any, no worries, because I'm springing that on you too. So recommendations. Sure. What do you got for us?
This is cool. Every year we go to our local mall, which just sounds weird, but in Vegas, malls are not common. So we go to our mall, and we go see the Santa Claus. Well, this year they redid it, and we were really worried because we saw it on the news. We don't go down because it's on the Strip. We don't go down there but for this. So we were really worried. They revamped it, redid it. We're like, oh, man, how do you – what? And they tied it in with DreamWorks' Shrek. I'm like, oh, this can only be a nightmare. Are you kidding me? No, from everything we've heard, our Santa, the same one we have seen for the last 7 years, is the Santa Claus that's there. He's a great guy. I love it. Put an appointment in so we have a time that we go see him so we don't have to wait in the big, long line, which you can see from how grumpy I am all the time. I hate lines. We go through sort of an interactive thing with Shrek and Donkey, and I think Puss in Boots, I think, is there. I'm not sure. I'm honestly excited to see this. But going to see Santa Claus with your children, I think it's fabulous. To me, there's no religious connotation to this. If you aren't a fan of whatever religion, to me, seeing Santa Claus is not a part of that. It's a Germanic tradition, which is just carried down with Christmas. So going to see Santa Claus should, to me, be everybody's favorite thing to do. I love it. I think it's fun. And ironically, I hated it as a kid, but now as an adult, I get my picture taken with the kids every year, and it's fantastic. So I'm excited to see this new interactive one, but just going to see Santa Claus with the kids, I highly recommend it.
That's cool. That's a good recommendation. Well, I'm going to stick with a recommendation as well, and this is going to be a different movie, and I didn't want to include it in my classic movies because it is a Christmas movie. It's set about Christmas, but it's not. It certainly isn't Charlie Brown Christmas, and that is Invader Zim, Horrible Holiday Cheer. Now, this came out in the late 90s. And it was a cartoon that was on, I think, Nickelodeon for a short amount of time, and they had a Christmas special. It's about this sort of like this alien who has invaded Earth, but he was only sent there as like a practical joke to get him out of the way because he's basically a screw up. But it's hilarious. He has this goofball robot sidekick. It's very, very funny. And the Santa one is hilarious because he basically uses Santa Claus to try to take over the world, and everyone, just does whatever Santa says to do, even if it means building a teleporter to teleport them to their doom. And it's just absurd and silly, and there's a song that has a little, sing-along thing to it that's about Santa Claus and how he will rule over you with his jolly boots of doom. It's just silly. So I recommend it because it's just weird and out there, and my kids were finally sort of old enough to get the humor and to watch it for the first time this year, and they absolutely loved it. My son is now watching every Invader Zim episode he can get his hands on because he's just cracking up at these characters. It is a very oddball, strange kind of humor and a little bit out there, so give it a shot. I recommend that one.
I have never heard of that. I'm going to have to look it up. That's fascinating.
Well, it's funny because it's sort of it's anti-Santa Claus in a way, which I'm sort of the opposite of you, Jim, which cracks me up that you said that. And I have nothing against people taking their kids to go and see Santa Claus and stuff like that. But we've always this is going to probably shock a lot of people. We've always raised our kids. They have never believed that Santa Claus is real, and I'm just waiting for the internet to blow up now because I get a lot of flack for that. But we just haven't.
In this relationship, our hetero life mate relationship here, I'm the one who's cynical. I'm the one who's the grumpy.
I know.
What is this?
I know. It comes from a lot of reasons, one of which was, and one of the most important ones for us, is that we wanted our kids to appreciate where their gifts came from, and to recognize who gave them the gifts, and that these are coming from people who love them, not as a reward for whether you're being good or not, and that kind of a thing. So it stems from that, and several other reasons that I don't really want to get into, because it's not that as important or as relevant, or it just is going to snowball into something else completely. But let me say that my kids still like Santa Claus, and they still enjoy having that as part of their of the Christmas experience, and they don't spoil it for anybody or anything like that. And don't they've gotten their picture taken with Santa and stuff too. And if people say, "Oh, what's Santa bringing you for Christmas?" they'll just answer, like, "Yeah, I'm excited for Santa." So they roll with it. But I always equivocated to, my son knows that Batman's not real, but he still loves Batman, and he still, can imagine Batman and pretends to be Batman and stuff like that. So it doesn't really take that much away from it. But I think I particularly like this Invader Zim because it kind of does this twist on Santa, and it kind of pokes fun at the idea of people, just doing whatever Santa tells them to do, and it just amused me from that front. So maybe you won't like it. I don't know. If you really are like you hated everything I just said, you're gonna be like, okay, no, I'm not doing that. This guy's totally ruined Christmas for me.
I'll be honest, I'm confused. You said something about Santa's not being real. I don't.
Right? Oh no, we should have given our spoiler alert and done the thumbs up. I have just ruined Christmas.
Santa Claus? What are you talking about?
I know. I've just ruined Christmas. Hopefully some of you out there, you just tuned out as soon as you just heard me babbling on and on anyway. So what about your Nerd Cave recommendation, which is the little term we give for the adults only side of things? Doesn't have to be holiday related. This can just be anything. Something that you've come across that you want to recommend.
Well, I would say that it's going back to it's going to be a couple weeks, but the night before Christmas, I honestly don't know what my parents did because I was asleep, and they did the Santa Claus thing. You gotta go to sleep or Santa won't come. I was like, oh God, I'm going to sleep. But Allison and I have started a tradition where we have mimosas, and we wrap the kids' presents, and we watch whatever holiday-themed film is on. Usually it involves like Miracle on 34th Street, White Christmas, which I have become a sucker for White Christmas lately. I will watch that on repeat, which annoys the crap out of Allison, but I really, really enjoy it for some reason. But yeah, we will do that little tradition, and no, it's not like adult themed, but it's adult themed that the kids are in bed, and that's something we started to do, is wrap their presents the night before, so that her and I could have a little bit of fun with the Christmas holiday. So that would be my recommendation.
Anything that involves mimosas is definitely both adult-themed and a good recommendation. And I will have for you a recommendation of a new classic film, or maybe you've already watched this one before, but it'll be my next holiday recommendation because it's one of my favorites that maybe you and Allison can take that one on this time on Christmas Eve with your mimosas.
Cool. I'm looking forward to your recommendation. I want to hear that one.
Awesome. Mine has absolutely zero to do with the holidays, so just throwing that out there in advance. It is Attack on Titan. I actually got a chance. We talked about this in a previous podcast, that there was all this sort of buzz about it, so I got a chance to watch some of it. Now, I haven't finished. I'm maybe about halfway through, but it is pretty awesome. Like, the animation is phenomenal, and I don't watch a lot of anime, so I don't, I can't compare it to everything. I do know that part of what I don't like, I don't want to say I don't like about anime because I appreciate it, but it's just a different style of film, because it's from Japan, is sometimes for a lot of American audiences, it moves slow. It'll have this moment where it really drags for a bit. And Attack on Titan will have a couple episodes that do that. But as a whole, man, does it move. And it is awesome with the cliffhangers, because like I'm watching it on Netflix, instant play, and it's like I watched the one, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I really need to see the next one. And the next thing you know, it's like midnight, and you're like, oh crap, like I need to go to bed. I can't be watching any more of this. So if you haven't checked it out already, I suggest it. If you like anime, definitely, you probably have already seen it. But if you haven't and you don't watch anime, give it a shot anyway, because it's pretty cool. It's sort of Walking Dead meets, I don't know, it's like giant, huge zombies instead of little tiny ones or something. It's cool. Yeah, I think you'd like it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about it, so it's definitely something I got to catch up on.
Cool. Very cool. Well, for our first holiday-themed podcast, I think it went well, except for me spoiling that Santa's, not real, and the whole muting things and stuff like that. So
we gotta work on the muting. That was totally forgot myself. I do want to give one shout out. I just forgot that we both have lived in a town called Medina, Ohio. It's basically where I'm from, and Jason spent a good number of years there. Yep. There is an exhibit for A Christmas Story there.
Really?
In our hometown. Yeah, it's like a little museum. And then if you are really ambitious and you want to do more of A Christmas Story, I believe they renovated the house where they shot the film, which is in Cleveland, Ohio. And you can go tour the house, and I think they made it just like it was in the movie. So, yeah, two things right there. Cleveland, Ohio, where the film was shot, not where it was set, but where it was shot. You can go see the house where it was filmed at, and there's a little museum in our little hometown, Medina, Ohio, of A Christmas Story. Kyle Palladino was there. He was telling me about it.
I saw he got Christmas cookie cutters in the leg lamp style, so that was pretty solid. Good shout out, definitely. All right, everybody. Well, happy holidays, and we hope you'll join us again for the next one, and our next holiday themed one.
And definitely hit us up with recommendations, with stories, traditions that you guys do. Obviously, you can see just between the two of us, we have different traditions, and we like to hear other people, so please share them. You can share them at info@nerdlocker.com. You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/nerdlocker, on YouTube at youtube.com/2nerdydads, or on nerdlocker.com itself. We also are on Twitter, twitter.com/nerdlocker, or iTunes. We have Two Nerdy Dads. So look us up, share your thoughts, everything like that. Anything else, Jason?
No, that's it. But if you want to give me a hard time, about the whole Santa thing, I'm willing to take it, man. I don't blame you.
Well, here's my parting thought.
Yeah.
I always thought the Grinch was green. Heart shape.
Touche.
Love you, buddy. All
Happy
right.
holidays, everybody.
Have a nerdy week.